tip. Gronk inks a deal with WWE. He's scheduled to make a cameo at WrestleMania 36 in April, but got us thinking, which NBA player would you most want to see as a pro wrestler now that Gronk has crossed the Rubicon here?
Two real easy answers. One is Draymond Green because he's got the build and because he talks a lot of trash. Another is Robin Lopez because he's been doing it all year long, right? With the Milwaukee Bucks. They do a little pregame thing.
Ennis Cantor's already gone in the ring.
I'm going Ennis Cantor and Steven Adams. I want them to be a
Steven
tag team.
Adams might be the sneaky best pick of everyone.
He's got to be like Undertaker, right?
Giannis is into it too, though. I don't know. I mean, not right now
Not
with the
the
knee
build.
injury,
Yeah,
but still. Welcome to The Jump. I'm Rachel Nichols alongside our front office insider, Amin Elhassan, former NBA head coach David Fizdale. Coming up, is it safe to say James Harden is back on track after putting up 37 to snap the Rockets' 4-game losing streak? We will discuss that. First, though, we got some breaking news for you related to coronavirus. The city of San Francisco has followed the lead of neighboring Santa Clara County and banned all gatherings of 1,000 people or more for 2 weeks. That ban will include Warriors games, which means, yes, the other shoe we have all been waiting to drop has hit the floor. The Warriors plan to play tomorrow night's game against the Nets without fans. In a statement, the Warriors said, quote, "We will continue to monitor this evolving situation closely to determine next steps for future games and events. We appreciate the understanding and patience of all of our fans, guests, and partners during this unprecedented time." Now, the Washington, D.C.'s health department has also recommended that events featuring crowds of 1,000 or more be postponed or canceled. The Wizards have 4 home games scheduled through next Friday, including this Friday against the Celtics, so we're keeping track of that. But this may soon be taken out of individual teams' hands. The league's Board of Governors is scheduled to hold a conference call about 90 minutes from now, in which it will discuss how to proceed as the impact of this virus grows. League sources told our Adrian Wojnarowski last night that scenarios include all the way up to moving games to cities that don't have reported cases of the virus, which could include non-NBA cities. We could also see more or all teams hold games without fans. The director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Dr. Anthony Fauci, told a congressional committee today he would recommend the NBA not allow fans at any games. There's, of course, also the more drastic step available of suspending game operations for a period of time. All of these decisions would, of course, heavily affect league revenue, especially if games without fans extend into the playoffs. But the NBA has said the health of its players and fans will be its driving and primary concern. So, Coach, how would you feel or really approach if you are Steve Kerr tomorrow playing a game without fans and getting your players mentally ready for that?
I think you still got to approach it as an important game for your team to get better. I mean, I think that's the bottom line, especially for Steve. He's got a young crew of guys. He's just trying to develop guys. You prepare them like it's any other game. It will be weird because I remember even in high school days when our fans didn't get along and they would brawl over in the neighborhood over here, we would start playing games with no crowd. And it's really weird to not have fans in the crowd, but I think it is.
You grew up in Inglewood, not that far from our studio here, right?
Yep.
And they would clear the fans out sometimes?
South Central.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because if you say Inglewood, then I'm going to get in trouble in the
Oh, I'm sorry. That goes into the Paul Pierce High School versus the York High School and the whole. I'm sorry. Okay.
Start trouble.
Right, but they would play. So you played some games
without a crowd.
Okay.
And not tell the crowd where the site was or where you were playing at, so they couldn't follow the school bus and all of that kind of stuff. But this is a whole nother deal. You're talking about people's health that's involved in player health, and so I think the coaches got to go about it the same way, prepare their teams to try to win a game, and we'll see where we go from here.
Yeah, you know, the funny thing is I was having this conversation yesterday at the Laker game with Eric Pincus from Bleacher Report, who's a big cap guy, and we're talking about if this becomes the norm across the league, what are the potential cap ramifications? Because you're talking about loss of revenue of gate, loss of revenue of concessions, parking, all that stuff. That could equal almost if we go from here to the end of the playoffs with no fans in the crowd, but we play the games, we're talking about maybe a $20 million drop in the salary cap next year, which means a drop in the luxury tax, which means every team might be in the tax a year from now. And so how does the league respond to that? Because obviously when you're planning 2-3 years ago, no one would expect this kind of scenario to happen. And so those are kind of the ripple effects, the unintended consequences of this. But obviously, like Coach said, health is number one. I mean, we're talking about people's lives here.
This is real.
And most importantly, when local governments say, No.
Yep.
You can't just thumb your nose. You have to go along with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would think that if this got to a point where we went months without the revenue from the fans and all that stuff you're talking about, they might make some exceptions on luxury tax, repeat violators, or things like that. That's all something that can get worked out over the summer once we get a handle on what this is. I think the hardest thing right now is for players to sort of get a handle on how to approach all this stuff. Because to your point, for the Warriors, yeah, they're not in the playoff hunt. They've been eliminated. You know, every game is just a chance to get better.
Get better.
But you have teams in pretty serious playoff races and races for seeding, and they're going to have that energy that they need. And you've heard players around the league over the last couple days push back, not because they don't want players or fans or anyone to have those health concerns met, but just it's the idea of playing without fans just feels so uncomfortable to them. It's going to be a big thing to get used to because it's happening.
Huge adjustment they're going to have to make.
Summer League 2008. Thomas and Mack, big arena, nobody there.
The last 2 games of Summer League.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody's
the
gone.
tail end when everyone's gone.
Absolutely. We will, of course, continue to monitor the situation throughout the show, but I want to get back to basketball just for right now. All right, guys, if you took a time machine back to 2007, you'd see the Spurs sweeping the Cavaliers for the NBA title. That was the height of the Big Three era and also LeBron James' first NBA Finals. He was just 22 years old, and after it was all over, we got this nice moment of LeBron and Tim Duncan running into each other in a hallway.
Great job, man. Good job. Hey, man, I love how you're on the 15 minutes. Stay that way, man. Stay that way. You're going to drive these guys. This is going to be your league in a little while. But I appreciate you giving us this year.
This is going to be your league in a little while, but I appreciate you giving us this one. Duncan and LeBron had cameras following them everywhere back then. Not shockingly, there was no camera following around Jacques Vaughn. I don't know. Vaughn had hardly been a point of conversation. He was a journeyman on the Spurs bench who played about 10 minutes a game in those 2007 finals, averaging exactly 2 points per game. Fast forward then 13 years to last night when Vaughn was again on the same court as LeBron, this time as the interim coach of the Nets. Vaughn got the gig after the team abruptly parted ways with Kenny Atkinson a few days ago. And while Vaughn has been a head coach before, a short, if unexceptional, stint with the Magic, his name has again been notably absent from the conversation. Actually, many news stories skipped over him entirely when they reported Atkinson's departure, jumping right into speculation over whether guys like Ty Lue or Mark Jackson might get the job eventually. But whether he is being talked about or not, for at least 20 games, Jacques Vaughn is the coach of the Brooklyn Nets. And so far, he is making the most of the opportunity. On Sunday, the Nets beat Chicago, and last night, the Nets, after that, held off a scorching Lakers team that had just dispatched the Bucks and Clippers. Maybe a letdown game was inevitable for LA, and indeed the Lakers looked disinterested in parts of the third quarter, but they certainly rallied toward the end. This three from Anthony Davis, this tied the game with just 43 seconds left. Look at that pose.
Hold it.
Let them all see.
Yeah.
Then it was Spencer Dinwiddie's turn, nice 18-footer, to give the Nets the lead. Right? Talk that talk. He's from around here, too.
It's always a foul.
LeBron to the hoop.
Oh,
No, that roll was savage, guys. Look at
That
this.
was a big, big miss right there.
Woo! And then finally, we got a LeBron kicking out to Anthony Davis, who had that clean three that didn't go, sealing the game for Brooklyn. Got to give the Nets bench some credit, by the way, on the AD miss. Look at Kevin Durant. He did the whole playground yell thing
Garrett
at
Temple
Davis
too, right?
as he shoots. It worked. After the game, most of the conversation was, again, not about Vaughn or even the Nets. It was more about the Lakers missing a chance to gain a game on the Bucks in the standings. But whether it's loud or quiet, Vaughn is now 2-0 as interim coach. And he's clearly working to communicate with players in a way Atkinson reportedly did not toward the end of his tenure. He's elevated DeAndre Jordan to the starting lineup, which has made KD and Kyrie happy. He's talking about adding new defensive sets if he does well. If the Nets make a decent stretch run and rep themselves honorably in the playoffs, will Vaughn have a real starting shot at the job permanently? Probably not, actually. That's just not how the NBA works in high-profile situations on teams with big stars. Guys like Vaughn are rarely part of that conversation, but that doesn't mean they're not there, making their mark decade after decade. So, Fizz, you know Jacques Vaughn.
Very well.
What can he do? Can he do anything to earn this Nets job long term?
Yeah, win games. I think it's just continuing to really build strong relationships with those main guys, with those stars. But I'm going to tell you something about Jacque Vaughn. Since I was a little kid, we've been together playing basketball. And Jacque Vaughn is one of the greatest basketball minds I've ever been around.
Wow.
From when he was a young kid here in L.A., you can ask anybody in L.A. about his IQ. When he went to Kansas, he was one of the smartest basketball guards we've ever seen. And then at a certain point in the NBA, the super talent always ends up taking over.
Sure.
But from a thinking the game standpoint, teaching the game standpoint, guys respecting him and what he brings to the table, I'm hoping that he gets a real shot at this.
Yeah, you know, the reality is two of the biggest voices in who's going to be next coach, they're not playing, in Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant.
Right.
And so regardless of what he does with this team, the two probably most influential people he needs to win over aren't experiencing, or they're experiencing it from the bench in street clothes or at home if you're Kyrie recovering and rehabbing. And so that is going to work against them, but that doesn't mean what he does here is meaningless or doesn't have value, because as we know, this is a great proving ground to show other teams that are going to have openings, hey, I'm a pretty good coach. I can take a playoff team and make them, you know, play well and have them in that hunt, basically, to the postseason. And so, and especially when you talk about a guy like Jacque Vaughn, a young black coach in this league, guys who don't normally get multiple chances at being a head coach. He got one chance in Orlando. It didn't work out. And when was the last time you heard him as a candidate for any head coaching job?
Not at all.
Not enough. Not enough.
Not at all.
Not
You
at all.
haven't heard him at all. So this is kind of a blessing in disguise for him, regardless of whether that ends up being the Nets head coach or not. He's able to showcase himself. He shouldn't have to, but he's able to showcase himself to other teams. Say, look, I'm still a good coach in this league, a candidate for your job. It's not just the kind of the new sexy names they bring up every year.
I mean, and the reality is Kenny Atkinson didn't really have those two guys either. Kyrie Irving's missed 44 games this year, and he never really got to build or experience what it would be like having those guys, and he still had his team in the 7th seed. So that's why I'm still kind of cloudy about the whole firing, because I think Kenny is one of the brightest young coaches in the
Coaches stick up for coaches, no matter what, all the time,
Always.
no matter what.
That's
it has
right.
been 9 months, by the way, guys, since KD tore his Achilles, Game 5 of the NBA Finals. And yesterday, we not only saw KD yelling at Anthony Davis from the bench, we actually got some footage of him working out and throwing down a pretty impressive dunk. This, I think, was on his brother's Instagram.
This is on Tony's Instagram. Right?
Kevin, 31 years old, right? So I want to kind of take a look at notable stars who came back after Achilles ruptures. There's the list. And then, you know, what's a little tricky is DeMarcus Cousins, right? He's up there. He comes back.
Right.
He has another injury that's, you know, in the leg. You know, you don't know how related it is,
and then
right?
An ACL.
And then an ACL. So that's all bottom half injuries that you wonder if the Achilles is weaker. Is that just creating these rolling injuries? I'm not a doctor, but
I love that segment.
what do you sort of think about KD as you see him make that dunk
Right.
and your expectations for him coming off this injury?
I'll never forget the day he ruptured his Achilles. I said the one thing that I think works in his favor is that he ruptured his right Achilles. As a predominantly right-handed player, he's going to push off and explode off his left leg.
Yeah.
So if you watch it, we can run that clip again. Well, not that clip, but the clip of him
dunking.
working out there on that dunk. You see his explosion and push off and is from the left leg. But right here, that crossover right to left. See how ginger it was? Because he's planning on his right leg. He's favoring it. So it's a little one. But then right there, that's the explosion. That's the KD we know. Because that left leg is healthy. So most of the stuff that he likes doing, he's going to be able to do because that's off the uninjured leg. The question is, as he favors that injured leg, that's when we talk about DeMarcus Cousins, all those other people. Do other injuries occur?
Overcompensating on the other leg.
Yep.
But I think overall, the way he plays the game and as his game continues to evolve, he's a 7-foot shooter. And so ultimately, he's still going to shoot over the top of you, and he's still going to have a huge impact on games. Where I think the graph we probably should be showing is all of those people that we put up there, what happened after the injury? What did they do in the league after the injury, and did they really produce?
It's gotten better, right? So obviously as medical technology has advanced, it's gotten better. So the guys who had those injuries later have done more. It does tend to take some years off a guy's prime, right? Kevin was 30 years old at the time of the injury. What you're talking about, being a little bit more ginger on one side, not having the full range of his game, standing around and being a spot-up shooter in some positions, that's what we think about when guys age. Right?
Absolutely.
When we think about the greats age, maybe so at 31, maybe he will be playing like he would have been playing at 33. I don't.
Exactly.
Really quick, Elton Brand, DeMarcus Cousins, heavy guys. Dominique Wilkins, one of the big
Muscle guy.
Is a muscle guy. Rudy Gay, who we didn't even have on there,
Yes,
has come back pretty good.
completely
So.
clean. Coming up, we'll talk about James Harden. Is he back on track after last night's win over the Wolves? Coach Fizz is going to break down some tape for us next.
Hey.
First, though, it's time for our distant replay from this date in 1999. We had black chocolate. I mean, we had chocolate thunder, and now we got white chocolate. It's all over the
Y'all
place right
mixed
now.
up.
All right. Oh, this is the old.
Jay Will.
This is at the sports arena.
Right?
Oh.
There was a leak probably.